All right, I'm going to get started. I changed the timing of our meeting today last minute, so my apologies if those of you who normally attend didn't get the memo or if you came at our usual time and I was not there. I apologize. It's summer, specifically the last week of summer for my family, so we were trying to make things jam-packed with the kids and enjoying some time on vacation. This month, the book that I present is The Parenting Map, and it's by an author named Dr. Shefali Tsabary. You may have seen her. She's a beautiful Indian woman. She's been interviewed multiple times by Oprah Winfrey and on many podcasts. She is a very prominent parenting expert and psychologist. She has a wonderful spiritual way of being and talking that I really love. It may not be for everyone. There may be a lot of what she says that you have resistance to, but I'm here to tell you that I really think she's right, even though it's hard to push through these things sometimes. I think the true path to deep connection with our children and having the relationship that we all want, which is a connected relationship, not just a successful relationship or an on the surface happy relationship, but a truly deeply connected relationship with our kids. The things that she talks about in this book and in her other books are really, really important for that. So I wanted to start out by reading something that she wrote. She actually starts each of her chapters with these little poems that she writes, which I really love. So I wanted to start with that. And let me find it for you. All right, here it is. The poem title is My Child. I feel no pain greater than your heartache, no joy greater than your triumph, no agitation greater than your tumult, no despair greater than your desertion. There is no emotion compared to what you invoke, no experience that comes near parenting you, no journey I would rather take than by your side, no adventure I would rather choose than to watch you grow. You, my dear child, are my greatest teacher. Through you, I learn how to love without control, to caretake without possession, and to raise myself before I raise you. In the face of your astounding radiance, I realize I am nothing, yet the fact that you exist suggests that I am everything, as expansive as your heart and as limitless as your potential. There is nothing I can give you, for you already house the sun within, iridescent and prismatic, inexhaustible and powerful beyond measure. I may give you birth and hearth, but without a doubt, it is you who have given me life and an awakening I could never have imagined on my own. And therefore, it is you who are my ultimate soul retriever. I love that so much. It's very deeply rooted in some Eastern Buddhist principles. But she doesn't really go into that so much. She just gets to kind of the truth behind it. So I wanted to start with my slides at this point. All right, so this is the book cover if you want to buy the hard copy. And for those of you who may be watching this on replay or seeing it live, you can get on my list to get access to all the replays. We've been doing the book club now every month since January 2024. So I don't know, how many is this? The 18th, 19th book, something like that. It's quite a collection now. And I love reading these books. I love summarizing these books. And for each one, I also create an actionable PDF for you. So I know y'all are busy. I get it. That's why I do this. I want you to take away the best of the best in terms of being able to distill the really useful tidbits from experts, from wonderful people who've taken the time to write down their wisdom for us and decide on ways that you can make a change in your life that's going to make your relationship with your child better, your life at home more peaceful, and help you feel more in alignment. So that's what the Empowered Parent Book Club is all about. It's free. Please share it with as many people as you would like. Anyone at your school or church or temple or anywhere that you think might benefit can join. You just go to theparentdoctor.com/book club. And at portal.theparentdoctor.com, you get free access to all the past book club recordings and all of those actionable PDFs forever. So that is that. I also have a podcast. It is uncreatively called the Parent Doctor Podcast. And if you could check it out on Spotify and Apple, like it, rate it, share it if you like it. That would be wonderful and help it get in the ears of more people who can be benefiting from it. And each month I do a call called the office hours. It's really all comers. I primarily work with parents of kids between ages of 5 and 12 who are trying to prepare for the storm of adolescence. And in my clinical work, I primarily work with kids who have anxiety and or ADHD and or autism. So those parents of those kids are the ones that I most enjoy working with and have the most experience and success working with. If that's you, please join me in the office hours. It is not a clinical session, but it is basically your ability to pick my brain, to have a conversation about what's going on in your life, to get some parent coaching in a group setting. It's very accessible and hopefully really helpful for you and very inexpensive. So that is at theparentdoctor.com/office-hours. All right, so getting into this now. Dr. Sabari talks about a 3-stage journey to becoming a really great parent, basically a connected parent. And the whole thing is that often in our parenting journey, we focus on our kids, like how can I get my kid to do X, Y, or Z? How can I get my kid to stop doing X, Y, or Z? And that's really the wrong focus. We really need to focus on ourselves. How can we get ourselves to not be triggered when our child is doing anything? Because why should it matter? They are a different person than us. We didn't really create them. We brought them into this world, but they are not ours. We don't own them. We can't force them to do anything or be anyone. They're on their own journey to determine what that's going to be. So step 1 is to go from frustration to clarity, to recognize that the challenge isn't your child's behavior or how do you get them to do something or not do something. It's what their behavior and their existence and their journey on their own path, which is predestined and up to them, that you have nothing to do with really, other than to be a supportive observer. That's going to, though, trigger things in you based on your own history. And so you need to have clarity about that. Then step 2 is really the hard work of this book, the kind of soul-crushing work of this book, which is to go from dysfunctional patterns to conscious choices when you do get triggered by your kids. And this is inevitable, right? We all get triggered by our kids, by the things that they say, the things that they do, the things they don't do. And by identifying why we're being triggered and what the ego patterns are from our own childhood history, we can break free from those automatic reactive cycles. And then the 3rd stage is going from conflict with our kids when our egos are triggered by the things that our kids do and wanting to correct them or fix them or change them. Instead, just accepting the isness of who they are and what they are, not judging it, not reacting to it, and instead being able to connect with our kids in that moment. So this whole thing is not about having all the answers. It's about being at peace with the fact that we're never supposed to have all the answers. It's not a requirement. It's not even an expectation. We're just here to do our best. And there's going to be times when we do it well and times when we don't. But as long as we are sincere in wanting to connect with our kids, the inevitable emotional ups and downs that will come in our relationship, both from our side and from their side, are going to be weathered just fine. Okay, so stage 1, shifting your focus. She talks about focusing on the right problem. So as I said, the problem is not your kid's behavior, it's what it triggers in you and understanding why. So most of the reactions we have, and she gives several examples in the book about different parents who came to her as their therapist saying, you know, my college daughter wants to drop out and start a spa, and I can't believe she's doing this. And in that example, the mother herself had failed to graduate from college and felt that this led her to have a disadvantage throughout her life. And she really didn't want that from a kid, for her child. So very often it's driven by a desire to help our kids avoid the pain that we've experienced in our lives, thinking that we know better than they do. And this is a tough thing to convince yourself is false. The truth, though, is that sometimes those tough things end up being necessary, both for you as the parent and maybe for your child as well, to help them on their own journey, which is a unique journey. And so we should step back, recognize when we're triggered by our kids' choices, ask, what is it about me? Is there something in this situation with my child that's reminding me of something that I went through? Is there some wound that I have that I haven't fully forgiven or healed? or moved on from that they're triggering? And can I move on from there? So the second part of this is destroying the fantasy. So she talks about how if you ask yourself, why did you choose to have children? The sentences that you will give are almost always because I blank, because I wanted to be a parent. I wanted to give back. I wanted to have a child to care for. It's all about us. It's not actually about them. And we had no idea what we were going to get. But despite not knowing what we were going to get, every one of us cannot help but having created a movie, a story of what our child is going to be. And it is also true that it will inevitably not come true exactly as we pictured it, right? In some cases, that's extreme. You may have a child who's totally different than you and everything you value and really challenges you. And in some ways, it's less extreme and more subtle. And sometimes when it's the most extreme, I would say parents I have worked with who have, say, very special needs kids, like severely autistic kids or cognitively impaired kids or physically impaired kids, those parents got a child who was so different than what they had imagined that they couldn't hold on to this fantasy anymore. They had to adapt to a new reality and accept the isness of their parenting journey and their relationship with their children. And I have enjoyed working with those parents the most because sometimes it's even harder for those of us who are fortunate enough to have neurotypical kids who are doing pretty well in general in life. The movie is still very much intact for us. And therefore, when our kids go off script, it's often more triggering for us. It's harder for us to let go of that fantasy. And then the third thing, which is so hard to do, it's relinquishing control and recognizing that being in charge as a parent is different from being in control. You can still have authority and provide a safe space for your child that they can feel secure in without needing to dictate everything that they do and all of their choices. And here she gives some examples of her own daughter deciding, I think the initial thing was giving up piano after practicing piano for 7 years, and then later giving up equestrian sports, and how she had to accept that this was her daughter's decision. And she basically encourages us for older children without a firm cutoff. It's not like if your kid is 12 and up, they can make this decision and you just say, okay, whatever. But she says, you know your kid. And if they're 5 years old and they have one bad piano lesson or one day where it's hard, they're probably at that age with their brains where they're at, less likely to be able to really push through. So with younger kids, she encourages us to hear them say, I hear that right now you don't want to go to piano. Today was not fun. Let's continue to go for 3 more sessions and talk about it each time. And if you're still not wanting to go, we'll come up with a plan that we can both agree with and feel good about. Whereas if your child is 15 and tells you they're done with piano, she gives many examples of how there's really nothing good that's going to come of you trying to make it my way or the highway, and to making your child think that they have to continue with whatever journey they were on, whatever person they were becoming in order to make you happy. If you really want to connect with your child, you have to be with them in their journey as they transform and accept each step of the way and know that there may be parts of it that you really disagree with, that you really worry aren't going to turn out for the best. And that's okay. All you have to do is let them know, I'm here for you. I support you. I do have worries about this, but I also trust that you'll figure it out and that together we can get through this. That's what they need to hear from us in those moments. It actually made me remember my sister-in-law. I have a niece who is now, I think she's a junior or a senior in college at this point, but when she was in high school, probably around 16 or 17, she announced that she wanted to be a mortician, which really was something out of left field. Neither of her parents expected this career choice to have been, appearing. And my sister-in-law really reacted strongly to this. Like, what are you talking about? Before that, she had had a plan to be a musician or a teacher, I think. And so to become a mortician just seemed like, okay, we don't have anyone in the family who does that kind of work. What is it about this that you like? Why do you want to do this? But instead of just being curious about it and hearing the daughter's point of view, my niece's point of view about why she was interested in this, her parents had a hard time and they had to say, like, they reacted, which is totally understandable. I'm not saying that I wouldn't. What I'm saying is Dr. Shefali Savari is saying we shouldn't. We should accept it like, huh, that's interesting. I didn't expect that my child would want to be a mortician. But insert, there's a blank there, insert anything there. I didn't expect that my child would be gay. I didn't expect that my child would want to pierce their face. I didn't expect that my child would want to tattoo their body. I didn't expect that my child would experiment with drugs, right? In some way, it's inevitable that our kids are going to go off script from the fantasy movie that we've written, from this plot that we have carefully, written down, directed, had in mind. It's going to go sideways. It's inevitable. And when that happens, what she says, which I really think is true, is we need to pause. We need to recognize the reaction that we have in ourselves. We need to let go of the need to control and stay connected with our kid. Be curious about it. See what it is about that thing that they want to do that's new. Learn about it, get them thinking about it, and let them know that you love them for who they are and you're here for them no matter what. All right. So stage one of this part is releasing these unhealthy expectations and the happiness chase. Now, she does not mince words here. She basically says that our society, this is absolutely true, is too focused on wanting kids to be happy all the time, as if that is even possible, right? It is not humanly possible to be happy all the time. We also want our kids to be successful. Well, what does that mean? No one is successful every minute of every day. Are we talking about just financial success? Because even people who are financially successful have massive failures along the way. So we really need to shift that narrative and move towards wanting to be present with our kids and connecting with them in the process of living. We want to dump the savior complex, and we'll get to this in a minute. But this idea, which she is a child of Indian immigrant parents, I think this kind of mindset is perhaps more common in first generation Americans. But this idea that kids owe us, she says, forget it. Your kids don't owe you anything. They didn't ask to be born. They don't owe you a thing. You chose to bring them into this world, and you chose to give to them because that's what parents do. It's not a transactional tit for tat thing. They don't owe you anything. So support them from the side instead of leading in front, and don't make it transactional. Then she says, discard labels. And I can tell you as a child psychiatrist, this is very important. We have to be really careful about the words that we use in describing our kids. We don't want to say things like, he's shy, or she's lazy, or she's difficult. Even to people when our kids are not within earshot, even to ourselves. Those words are labels that don't describe the reality of the person, the energy that your child is. They're a story that you're telling yourself because of your own wounding. And because you've got this narrative, this play, this movie, that you're expecting them to function in a certain role, and they're not. So you're coming up with these labels to soothe your own disappointment. But it's all about you. It's all about your ego. Okay, so stage two, again, without getting into really Buddhist language, she really starts talking here about Buddhist principles, which is the idea that you are not, she calls it your ego, but you are not what you think you are. You're not your name, your job title, your degrees, your education, your accomplishments, your gender, your relationship to another person. Like, none of that is who you are. All of that is the mask of the ego. And your authentic self is the consciousness that knows that that's not you, that knows that this body has done those things have happened to you, but you also know that you are more than that. But what she really dives deep into, which is based on the psychological principles outlined by a psychoanalyst named Donald Winnicott, is that in early childhood, we cannot help but have to adapt to the people who are our caretakers and how they interact with us. As a result, we form this ego, which is, according to Donald Winnicott, a false self. It's this idea of, say you're growing up in a household where your dad really thinks that you're going to be the next best golfer in the world and puts a golf club in your hand at age 2, takes lots of home videos and has you on the golf course every weekend, like pretty much inevitable that you're going to grow up with this idea and identity that you truly are a golfer. Now, it's true, your body, your mind is going to become really good at golf if from the age of 2, you're devoting hours and hours and hours every week to that sport. But who you really are, you may be out of touch with. Because if you lose the ability to golf, it could be devastating because that's all you know. But the truth is, we're all more than things that we do, than what our jobs are, than the things that we're good at. And we continue on with purpose and value, even if we can't do those things. So the imposter ego is, in Donald Winnicott's terms, the false self. And it's really what we hold on to naturally because it's our identity. But what she challenges us with here in this part of the book is understanding that that actually has nothing to do with who you are. And similarly, your child's false self, if you force them to make it, if you, by imposing your needs, your ego needs on your child when they're young, make them develop their own ego, then they won't know their true authentic self either. And so she really identifies this conscious parenting movement as something that could truly change the world, because if we can, or many of us can, raise kids, letting them be truly who they are without needing them to be something else for us, and just being with them in the process of growing up and discovering who they are, then they could grow up with an ego that is one with their authentic self, with no false self, with just one self, instead of 2 eyes, just 1 eye. All right, so this part of the book, she really goes into great detail. She talks about your ego patterns, and she gives you some exercises, which I'm going to give you as well in this week's or this month's actionable PDF, to determine what are your ego patterns that you go to, and what were the ego patterns of your parents, because that will help you understand where yours came from. So fighters are people who get angry and raise their voice. They're the enforcers, they explode. They're critics, or sometimes they're passive aggressive. So there's different flavors of the fighters. Fixers, and this aligned with me. I see myself in this. Fixers are people pleasers. They can be enablers. They can have kind of a superhero complex where they need to be the rescuer. They can be the helicopter parent, the nervous Nilly, the nervous hoverer, or they can be the ATM parents who just want to fix everything by buying something, paying someone, doing something, right? I see a lot of parents like this in my social circles, and I have tendencies toward this as well. Feigners is people who are image focused. So they're really focused on the false self. They want their family and themselves and their children to appear to the world like everything's good all the time. So these are transactional people, stars, child stars, maybe. Often they're martyrs, like poor me, woe is me when things aren't going well. And often, well, sometimes too, included in this is parents who might have problems with addiction, who themselves act like children and make their kids function in the role of parent, like paying the bills and taking care of business. Those types of parents are also feigners. Fourth is freezers. These people generally have an anxious, avoidant attachment style, so they avoid confrontation. Sometimes because confrontation or anything challenging is difficult for them, they can be half-hearted in their connection as parents, and often they can come across as emotionally disengaged. And then fleers are kind of the more extreme version of that, but in all of these situations, it's an overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system, as we talked about before. Fleers are people who are escapists. They're the yo-yo parents, they're hot, they're cold. They might be, the prototypical, kind of stereotypical divorced dad who comes in to be like the fun dad, but then maybe might not always be there, might not always follow through on his promises. And they may be emotional or physical abandoners of kids or partners because they can't handle being abandoned themselves. So they would rather abandon you first than give you the chance to reject them. So when you go through this exercise in the PDF, you'll see one or two of these that you recognize and resonate with the most. And again, this isn't you all the time, but when we're at our worst, when we're at our most overwhelmed, when we're at our most ego triggered, there are going to be some patterns here that you recognize that you go to. And really being honest with this in this book and in this exercise is going to help you then be able to fix it. How do you fix it? Well, you recognize what you feel in your body when this starts to happen, and you start pausing. And then she has some mantras that she tells you to tell yourself, which is something like, right now I'm in an emotional tsunami. I need to just breathe and feel my feelings and make it through this. Understanding that like feelings come, feelings go, you'll be okay. But what you don't want to do is get overwhelmed by your feelings and flee, get overwhelmed by your feelings and freeze and avoid. Instead, you want to just take the time that you need to calm down and then come back and be present with your child, especially when it's your child who's triggering you. All right. So that brings us to the second part of this, which is understanding that as part of it, right? Understanding what your ego is and how it got built up in your childhood from your parents' habits and ways of being with you. That's important to understand, but understanding that alone isn't going to help you. What you really need to do then is break free from the triggers by embracing a more conscious response. So first you have to face those triggers, understand that they're not caused by your child, but caused by your brain, your body, your programming, and how you interpret experiences and things that happen. The second part is owning those wounds, recognizing that only you can change this because you have to fix yourself. Hurt people, as the saying goes. So healing requires acknowledging that your pain is yours, it's real, and you can fix it, but no one else can. And third is breaking the loop. So giving yourself what you need, pausing, breathing, recognizing the trigger, responding from wholeness. You may need support in the form of a therapist or medications or other things to get through this. Get whatever you need to, because you can become whole, but it takes some work and you have to want it. If you continue to blame your child or blame other people for causing your reactivity, then you'll never break free of this. You have to own it yourself. So when healed, you can finally raise the child in front of you, not the wounded child within yourself. So you have to raise the wounded child within yourself if you want to be able to raise your actual physical child in the world here and now. Then stage 3 that she talks about is building authentic connection with our kids. And as I said, you can't do this until you heal yourself first, because you have to resolve your own inner conflicts and wounds before you attempt to guide your child. Then she talks about consciously communicating with your kids. We've talked about this in many of the other books that we've done too. Connection before correction, seeking to understand, being curious, validating feelings, even if you disagree with the behavior, validating the feeling, letting them know that you get it is not the same as agreeing with them. And then building trust. Be consistently patient, present, authentic, reliable. Apologize when you make mistakes. And then things will just continue to get better and better. So she then talks about when our kids say, I hate you, and slam the door, right? Which is like a knife in your chest. The unconscious response then is to react with your ego, to get defensive, to be angry, to be hurt, to withdraw, to yell, whatever it is, right? If you're a fighter, you're going to go in there and say, how dare you talk to me that way? If you're a fleer, you're going to leave. In my own childhood, there were sometimes days where my mother wouldn't talk to me. So I would get like the silent treatment if she was really overwhelmed. So that was, what is that? That's someone who's really overwhelmed and fleeing, right? Or avoiding. It's both. So hurt people. And then we want to come to having a conscious response instead. So recognize your trigger. And it doesn't have to be in that moment, right? It's really hard in the moment to recognize your trigger. You're probably, especially for the first long while, going to continue to have some response. What's going to happen first, as you start to become more aware, is when you calm down, you'll be able to say, you know what? That wasn't all about him. That wasn't all about her. I had that reaction because I saw myself in them, or it reminded me of this situation I've been through before, I think. And therefore I should apologize. And you can explain to your kid, if they're old enough, what was going on in you, why you had that big reaction. And you can recover after the fact. It doesn't have to be in the moment, but as you get better and better at recognizing your own triggers and recognizing those emotions welling up in you, you will be able to pause in the moment, center yourself, and see the pain that is lying beneath your child's words. So instead of being reactive and making it about you, you can compassionately say, you're really upset right now. You really wanted to go to that party. Or, it feels like I have ruined your life because I'm not letting you go out with your friends because you haven't completed your homework. I get that. And be genuine about it and not be angry at them, because you can see that they have emotions that are coming from your limits. Again, you're in charge without being in control. You don't need to control their emotions, but you can stay in charge. And that gives you a connection opportunity. So it sounds like you're feeling really upset. I can understand that. When you're ready to talk about it, I'm here for you. That allows you to stay connected to your child despite the anger and the frustration. So, hi, Kim. Sorry, I'm just wrapping up, but you can watch the replay. All right, so the key takeaways are that parenting is really about our own self-transformation. It's not about our kids. It's not about getting them to do different things or pulling their strings like marionettes. It's about understanding why certain of their behaviors is triggering to us and working on it ourselves. The second part, though, is releasing control and expectations. This is a continuous journey. It's not like you're just going to wake up one day and have this done. Meditation helps a lot. But recognizing that kids need their own space to grow into themselves, that although our bodies may have brought them into this world, or our decisions may have brought them into our families, they are unique people, and we cannot predict, determine, or control the choices they make or the things that happen to them in their lives, even though we wish we could. It's an illusion. We can't. Even the best parent, the most loving parent, cannot. So stop imagining that you can. Just be with them. Just accept it. And then the third is heal your own inner child. It will be a much more enjoyable journey with your kid if you can work on your own inner wounds, your own inner child's upset, which presents in the form of your ego and your reactivity. And when you do that, then it becomes much easier to just enjoy this journey and be present in the isness of what life is and what life brings you and your kids as you go along. So one of the quotes that I really liked in here was, parents don't raise children as much as children raise parents. And I think that's absolutely true. I have grown so much more in the 12 years since having my son than I did in the 35 years before that. And I think we can all agree, if you have children, they just hold a mirror up to you. Not only do they give us purpose, but they also really can help us see what this is all about a little bit better, I think, and kind of what the long-term goals are and what's really important. So that, I think, is the last slide. I'm really enjoying her writing style. And this is one that I actually would recommend you read, even with your partner if you have one. I think that the exercises and the conversations that it will stimulate between you and your partner about kind of exploring your childhood, the things that happened to you, where your ego or false self may have developed, especially if you're not on the same page with certain things with regards to your parenting, could be very, very helpful. Next month in September, I'm really excited. We have Eli Harwood, who is going to join us in the book club, which is great. She wrote a book called Securely Attached, and she has a blog and a website called Attachment Nerd. She's great. I love her sense of humor. I love her style. And I do have to pay her to join us for this book club. So I'm going to sell tickets to the live event. Everyone who joins us can pick her brain, ask questions, and then everyone else in the book club will still get the recording. But to attend this one live, you will have to have purchased a ticket for entry for $25. And I'll be sending you guys all an email about that and a link to the book. This basically is a modern take on how we can help our kids have regulated nervous systems. So the attachment literature and research was done by a bunch of different psychologists in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. One of the most prominent was John Bowlby, and he really wrote about secure versus insecure attachments. He took videos of these kids who we didn't know a lot. Like just not that long ago, we didn't really understand a lot about child brains and child development, but now we understand a lot more. And what our kids need from us is a safe home base. So we'll be able to talk to her all about this and what does that mean at different ages and stages, because a safe home base for a 1-year-old looks different than a safe home base for your 16-year-old. And so I'm really looking forward to that one. That'll be our first book club where we actually have the author live with us. And I think that's going to be great. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Sorry about the changing time again and the last minute scheduling snafus. I was in Boston with my kids yesterday and today, and we had a fun time, but it did result in us not getting home in time to do the book club at our usual hours. So thank you for being here, and I'll see you guys all on September. Let's see. I'll pull it up. September 17th is going to be Securely Attached with Eli Harwood. All right, take care. Bye.